Okay, I'm just going to wait. I've switched my camera on a little bit early just to allow everything to come up. And so I am ready, we'll be ready to go. Just give it a few more moments. I think we're very nearly 10 o'clock. Okay, well, everybody, welcome to my corner of the world and welcome to my Sunday Live. So, this is my opportunity to work with you sort of directly rather than through a recorded video. And today I am going to be exploring the Olive Branch stamp set. Now, this is one that I saw in the catalogue and I really loved it, but it's kind of been sitting on my shelf for a couple of months while I think what I wanted to do with it. So that's what I'm going to work on today along with you. So if you've got any comments or anything that you'd care to share as we go along, please just go ahead and pop them in the comments. I can see that Lynn is with me. Thank you for joining me, Lynn. I really appreciate it. And I know that my dear husband is in another room watching as well. So, as I say, if you could just let me know you're out there, and I'm not talking to myself on this Sunday morning, I would appreciate it. So, as I said, I wanted to explore this Olive Branch stamp set. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I tend to like to develop a card using just one stamp set. And so when I look at the choices for my stamp sets, I'm always looking to see if I can get images as well as words. And I know that it's not obviously always possible, but it's kind of my number one thing I'm looking for. So I thought what we could explore is using some colouring techniques. And that is why I've got a couple of my colouring tools out as well. Because when I kind of look at olives, I know there are green olives, and to be honest with you, I prefer green olives rather than the black ones. But when I had a little play with this stamp earlier, using just like green was a weeny bit dull. So I thought, well, maybe we need to colour something up. So that's what I'm gonna work on. So I have got a few materials now. Olive Branch, I have to admit I did choose old olive cardstock. It's a bit corny, I know, but that's kind of what went through my mind. That was an easy decision. And then I was thinking about black olives. Well, black, they're not truly black. Black, they tend to have a bit of a reddish hue to them, a dark red hues. So I've got some Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to be working with some vanilla cardstock. Right, so now I've got my basic bits together. I'm gonna, I've loaded my biggest stamp onto one of these big blocks. Now normally I would look at using my Stamparatus, but I decided that today I'd just stick with a block because I wanted again to show you that it's not just it's not just Stamparatus you can use these on, you can use these blocks as well. So being corny again, I've gone with old olive ink. And so I'm just going to ink up my stamp. Nice light touches. Now, I'm going to kind of put this a bit of an angle like that because I think I'm going to need some room to put in a greeting when I get there, and that space will leave me a nice place to do that. So there's my green. Now looking at it, it might appear that it is a bit on the splotchy side. Well, that is the type of stamps that it is. It's what's known as distinctive, and it does give different depths of ink because of the way that the stamp was molded, and that's going to work in our favour in a moment. I am going to just leave that to dry for a couple of moments before I do the next step. Excuse me. So I'm now going to do something with a greeting. So I decided that I would use this one, Peace, Love and Hope, because they talk about an olive branch is about peace. So and hope, I suppose. So that's why I decided I would use that one. And so I'm just going to pop that on a scrap. And then I've got one of my favourite punches. I don't know if anybody else has got this one or uses it, but I really love this rectangular postage stamp. It's got lots of nice texture for the edges. And then just punch that out. When I look at this, it looks a weeny bit on the sort of bare side. So we have got another stamp in the set, which is a smaller olive branch. So I thought that what I could do is cover up some of the sort of plainness with a little bit of stamping. And I think I'm just going to stamp the next bit off and just make it a little bit paler. I think I like that. And I'm going to do a bit of blending. I love my blending brushes. Anybody else use these? Because they're just fabulous. And so I'm just going to pick up some ink here, and I'm just going to start on the edge of my paper, and I'm just going to soften the edges of this piece of card. And I think that's just going to just finish that off nicely, like that. There, just a sort of a light covering. Can you see what I mean? It kind of just gives it a little bit more, I don't know, interest. I think that's the word I was looking for. So then, since I've got my brush out, I'm going to do the same on my piece of card here. And I've got quite a few videos on how to use these blending brushes. But I always like to keep my finger on the top because I can put pressure. And then I start off and then just bring it over. And I like to use circular motion. It's just me. I just find it works better for me. And just add a little bit more in here. Okay. Anybody else out there that is joining me today? You'd like to let me know you're there. Okay, I think that's enough. Everybody see how kind of, let me show you what it would look like without the blending on there, the additional ink. It just kind of takes a little bit of the brightness, I think is the term I'm looking for there. So we have our base, so I'm just going to pull together. No, I'm not. I nearly forgot to share you the very technique that I was planning to do. Now, I did mention that the image does look a little bit on the splotchy side, and I did say that that's going to work to our advantage, and it is part of the stamp. So I have got one of my Stampin' Blends. Now this is the light Highland Heather, and I'm going to use the brush end. That's the end with the wider mark, and then this is the narrower mark down here. And all I'm going to do is just gently add some colour on to my olive. And it just picks up when those areas where the ink is lighter, and it sort of shines through. Now when you use these blends, you need to work on something that you don't mind if ink comes through, because it will come through to your to the back of your card. That's not so if you like, a problem. That's just the way that they're built, because they are spirit-based or alcohol-based inks. So you want to make sure that when you use these, you're going to be attaching your piece of card to another piece, so that discoloration is just hidden. Okay, so we've got our coloration. Okay, what do you think about it so far? Think I'm getting somewhere with this? All right. So now I'm going to attach it to my Blackberry Bliss. So I kind of figured that, you know, that was a nice tone to go with it. Now I'm also thinking, because I've got a little bit of rusticness going on here with my ink, I could do with a bit of twine. Now this is like a woven twine. It's a bit on the thick side for what I want. This is what is this called? Threaded twine. It's got some silver in it and all. So what I did was I cut a length like this, and I just pulled out a thread like this. Easy peasy. And it's got a nice sort of crinkle to it, which gives even more texture. And I'm just going to wind it 3 times. I think that I did enough for 3 times. And then I'm just going to add a little knot. Tie that in the back. Okay, tying knots live is a bit of a stress. I'm just going to pull them out again to give it a bit more texture, and then we're going to put some dimensionals down. So I'm going to have, I'm using my edges here. They're just as sticky as everything else. All right. Oops, something fell on the floor. And just pop that on like that. And I've got my little greeting, which I'm also going to put on some dimensionals. All right, so how are we doing for time? Oh, good. And I'm just gonna leave it like that. Obviously, I always have to have my inside piece, so I can write on, and I'm just gonna go and do use that little olive again and some adhesive. Now I'm not getting any messages coming through, so I do hope that people are out there. That's why I'm not responding, because I can just see Lynn's hello Cindy at the moment. So hopefully everything is working live. So there is my first card. I think I quite like it, but I think I'm going to do another version. So I've got a few bits and pieces out and do a slightly different style card, but using the same stamp set. Now, looking at that old olive, I'm thinking to myself, old olive, yes, but maybe I could go for a slightly different green on this one. So I think I'm going to use the Granny Apple Green, which is a much sort of brighter, lighter colour. I'm just going to clean my stamp off. So I can do that. So this time I've got some other pieces of card that I'm going to use, and get my piece of backing sheet so I don't mess up my work surface. Now this is another colouring technique I'm going to share with you, and we're going to, first of all, and as I say, I'm going to use this slightly smaller stamp, and I'm going to load it up with the ink, and then I'm going to get a cotton bud or a Q-tip, and I am just going to remove the ink from my olives. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't move it from the leaves. Just trying to get the last bit of colour off, like that. Just takes a few moments, but the effect is worth it. And this time I have got my Blackberry Bliss marker. Now this is an ordinary ink. It's not an alcohol based ink. It's just an ordinary ink, and I'm just going to pop it on my olives, and I'm just gently catching those. All right, like that. And because that other ink has been sitting there for a few moments, I'm just going to sort of breathe heavily on the block. And that just activates the ink a little bit. And then I'm going to put it here. And there I've got my different coloured olives. And I think I quite like that. That lighter green. It's a bit sort of brighter. Right, so while I'm here, I'm just going to stamp my greeting again. I'm going to do it exactly the same way that I did it a few moments ago. So we've got the same sort of techniques running through both cards. Now you could use either of these techniques on this stamp, that I've shown you. So if you wanted to, you could stamp this all in one green and use the alcohol marker to colour it in, or for our first card you could have, you know, wiped off the ink off of the olives and made that work that way. either way would work. All right, just seeing if we've got any more comments coming through. We don't, but I'm not going to fret. Hopefully you're out there, and I really appreciate you being there. So I'm just going to add a little bit of ink onto there. And while I've got my stamp out, I am going to share a slightly different technique where we're going to do tone on tone. So I'm actually putting the same shade of ink onto the card, to a card, so that you get like a nice muted effect. And because I'm going to put something in the middle, and I'm not going to bother inking up the middle, let's put you there like that. And while I've got my ink pad out, I'm going to just do my liner. I think that's all my stamping. All right, so I can actually see that there's quite a few of you watching now. So as I say, if you've already commented and said hello to me, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, because those comments aren't coming through, but I'll get to see those maybe later. So once again, we're going to get out the blending brush, and I'm just going to take the brightness out here. And I'm going to do the same on this piece. So both cards are using similar techniques, just slightly different layouts, and I'm just sharing two different kinds of colouring techniques, depending on, you know, what you have in your stash. All right, I think I'm good on that. Just thought maybe I could do with some ink on this to just tone down the brightness. So this cardstock here, this is Sahara Sand, and I cut this piece at 3 3/4 by 4 3/4, slightly smaller than my card base, so I could see a bit more of my card base. And the piece of vanilla that I've just stamped on is 3 1/4 by 2 1/2. Right. And then I'm going to attach it to a piece of Blackberry Bliss, again using the same colours all the way through. And this piece is 3 1/2 by 2 3/4. So I have the same colour card base. I did use the old olive again, and we're going to attach this piece with some liquid. Like that. And the Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of this piece. Now, as I haven't been able to see your comments, maybe you could put some comments below this video when I'll publish it later, and let me know that you were there, and then I can actually respond to you directly. So the clocks went back here in Texas last night, so maybe that's why my my things aren't working because it doesn't like being the new time. Right, so I'm just going to pop a dimensional there, but I don't want to put a dimensional up in that corner because otherwise it'll be sort of uneven. So I am just going to put a tiny little bit of liquid adhesive up there just to stop it flapping around. Like that. There. Okay, so I didn't put any twine on this one. I think that it probably doesn't need it because we've got a little bit of extra detail with the layers. So there are my two cards, and we've used the olive branch stamp set, and I've shared with you a couple of colouring techniques on how to get a second colour to sort of relieve the solid green. And also we've done a little bit of blending, and we've used one of my favourite punches, the rectangle stamp punch. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to share this and to sort of work it through with you. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I say, I'm really sorry that I haven't been able to see your comments. Excuse me. But I will be continuing to do a Sunday live at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time on a Sunday. And if you don't already subscribe to my channel, you can go ahead and do that, and then you'll get a notice each time I do a live. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I truly appreciate your support. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye for now.